Welcome to the Maverick Paradox podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith Germain, and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you'd like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. And today, our guest is Lee Rowley. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Judith. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. Could you tell us who you are and what do you do?
Absolutely. Well, when most people ask me what I do, I usually tell them I'm just Lee. But the longer version is I am a copybrander. I spent several years working as a copywriter, and I found that a lot of the tactics and strategies that they advocate are not really in alignment with how I like to do business. So after a long journey, I kind of reinvented copywriting into copybranding, which I feel takes into equal accounts making the sale and nurturing the relationship so that you actually build your brand, not just get one-off sales.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was looking at your website and I thought it was a very maverick approach, the way you described copybranding. And I think you said something along the lines that it creates a genuine desire through ethical persuasion for trust and a deep sense of connection, which to me sounds like something a socialized maverick would say.
Absolutely. I don't want to create the perception that there's no persuasion involved. Because a lot of people say, okay, if we're all just kumbaya around the campfire and everything, then nothing's ever going to get sold. That's not what I'm saying at all. There's a difference between ethical persuasion and the kinds of baloney that I see online every single day. Things like false scarcity, the fear mongering, all of the classic direct response tactics that the gurus insist still work, but nobody's really buying it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I saw that on your website that you said that you've been doing sales for 11 years, but you wasn't doing very well for 6 of those.
That is true. And I say I learned copywriting the way that most copywriters learn it, and that's simply this. They'll tell you to go hand copy the sales letters from like the 70s and before, Gary Halbert and Dan Kennedy and Clayton. So they'll tell you to, that's how you learn it. You go hand copy these things word for word, and then you go use a bunch of templates, and all the thinking's done for you, and all you have to do is hit the psychological triggers, as Robert Cialdini calls them, and then you make the sale. And that's great. Those things do work. You can hit those triggers and make those sales. But what happens is that when all you're doing is hitting those triggers, 30 seconds after you've made the sale, the person's sitting there going, I just got had, didn't I? I've just been taken for a ride. And then you've lost their trust forever.
Okay.
Are they going to be back?
Not in this day and age, I don't think.
Not in this lifetime.
I know it does. One of the things that interests me when you're talking about proposition, I do some of that work, not from a copy branding perspective, but looking at what someone's proposition is and making sure that it isn't just marketing blah blah, that it is aligned to the values and it goes much deeper. Mm-hmm. And I sense that you do something similar, but probably much more on the marketing side than I do.
I actually do a full course that's just based around refining your core marketing message. Mm-hmm. I find that especially in the coaching and freelancing arenas, so many of us end up building our businesses on whatever comes along. And then we end up defining our businesses by that. And we figure out that we're trying to serve all kinds of different people, and we're spreading ourselves too thin. Mm-hmm. And moreover, our marketing really isn't as effective as it could be because it's not speaking to one person. it's speaking to a lot of different people and not really connecting with any of them. Your audience should feel your visitor, whoever's reading your email, whatever it is that you're writing, they should feel like you've written it to an audience of one. You've written it to them. You can't do that if you have 50 different kinds of people you're trying to serve.
Which makes a lot of sense. So how do you cultivate trust in the copy branding method?
Well, the first thing is, I would say the magic happens at the intersection of why you're ready to help and why they're ready to change. Okay, and there's the two parts of that is really getting deep into why you do what you do. Because no matter what niche you're in, no matter what you're selling, there are a billion other things that you could be doing. And if you're marketing online, there are probably a lot easier ways to make a living. Let's just face it. Everybody who says this is so easy, if you've been in the game for a while, you know that it's anything but. So being able to look at that and cultivate your own sense of why, which takes some digging. I ask people, well, why did you start your business? Well, because I want to, I want to help people gain financial freedom. Okay, well, why? And then if you ask why enough times, you eventually get down to a nucleus, an event that happened in their lives that precipitated all this. And they never made that connection. But once they make that connection, then that drives the purpose behind their messaging and their marketing, right? So that's the one side. The other side is what I call avatar immersion, which is just diving into your buyer's world and finding out what's really going on, because we feel like we know, my ideal buyer is named Sally. She's 56. She has 2.5 kids and a dog named Sparky. She lives in the suburbs. Blah, 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 blah. No, that doesn't show you what's going on in their inner world. And what's going on in their inner world is what makes them buy or not buy.
So would you say that copy branding then is really letting people hear your own voice?
Absolutely. It's about finding that intersection of your purpose, your why, and the reason that they need you. What's going on in their lives that makes this an ideal place to be right now. Yeah, it's less about copy, it's less about tactics, and it's more about just understanding people. Because at the end of the day, people want to be understood a lot more than they want somebody to fix something for them. They want the fix too, but if you can show them you understand them, there's really no sales involved.
So how did you get to where you are today?
Well, as I said, the first several years, I just kind of limped along with that. And I took whatever projects came on and I wrote copy the way that I'd heard you were supposed to. And I did that primarily so that I could stay home and take care of my daughter, who has some serious health challenges. And, I can say for that, in that respect, it did what it was supposed to. I didn't, always get all the bills paid, but we got through, and I was able to stay with her and help her where she really would have had some serious difficulties otherwise. But unfortunately, she passed away in 2013, a little bit shortly after her 10th birthday, and so then I'm stuck with this conundrum of, okay, I've been copywriting for so long that I'm really unemployable. I don't know what else to do. This sucks because I hate writing pushy sales copy, and now my primary reason for doing it isn't even here anymore. So, I did this. I did what any person would do. I spent a year drinking, and then after that, I started putting everything together and figuring out, okay, if I'm going to continue to do this, I'm going to do it in a way that is aligned with who I am as a person and who my daughter was as a person, which is just, she was her own person. She did not give a rip what anybody thought of her. But if you accepted her for who she was, she would go to the ends of the earth for you. And, that's really how I look at my business. Find your people. They don't have to be everybody else's people. You find your small group of people, and you just give value. And that's what's really taken me from copywriting as a commodity to copywriting as a real career.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry about the outcome
No,
with your daughter.
thank you.
But it's heartening to see how you've taken yourself from that into something really, really positive. And I suppose in some respect that's part of your voice and your guiding light for others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would you say to somebody who, what I see quite commonly is people come out of corporate life, especially the ones that didn't want to, so they've been made redundant.
Right.
So they didn't want to set up on their own, but they've reached a certain age, and the millennials think they're too old for anything now. So, so they have to, they have to set up their own business to stay employed, as it were.
Sure.
They're trying to they don't see that they have to let go of the corporate mindset. How do you get them to be vulnerable enough and maverick enough to stand out and say, this is who I am, buy from me or not?
Everything that I put out on social media, in my marketing right now is 100% authentically me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't put on airs. I don't pretend to be anything that I'm not. And I don't hold back on what it is that I do know. And what I've found is that getting to that point has allowed me to essentially not have to worry about that, because the people who get it and the people who I can help are the people that show up in my PMs, the people that show up in my inbox. They're the people that call me out of the blue and I didn't even know they had my number. The rest of them, well, they're repulsed and they go on about do whatever it is they're going to do. And I don't have to worry about that. So really that's it for me. Has not been so much about worrying about them. It's just about getting real clear on me and who I want to serve and letting my messaging speak for itself.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I can see that, you have a maverick nature of sorts. So that becomes quite comfortable. But what about those clients of yours? So they kind of sense that there's something about you that they want to follow and that you can help them. But they're like, I have a redundancy payout and I need to have set up a business and I need a copywriter. How do you get them to go, actually, what you need to be is vulnerable, sensitively vulnerable. You need to own who you are. You need to just go out there and call a tribe. How do you get them to go, I don't want to call a tribe. I just want to be.
Yeah, I do. Just want to set up and just want to roll out the carpet and make money overnight. Yeah, I totally get that. And it's a process. I've had clients who unfortunately have never gotten that. And, being able to spot that before a prospect becomes a client is critically important. Yes. Really, most of the people that come into Lee Rowley Copybranding are 90% there, or they at least have the willingness. And again, that comes down to front loading the work with what the message that I want to put out there, and then having the people resonate with it. To be honest with you, if somebody is not a good fit, I know plenty of other copywriters who can help them. So I'm not shy about saying no to a project. So I don't really try to push, people who aren't at that point, because there are other people who can better help them with that.
Yes, I understand that. But I'm just imagining if someone is listening now and goes,
sure,
I want to have that ability like Lee, what would they need to do? What would you suggest that they do to get themselves ready?
Unlearn everything that you have ever learned about marketing. That would be the first thing that I would say. Just scrub it all out, because all of the simple funnels and the 23-step plans and all this stuff. Look, they're shiny objects. Your brilliance is inside you, and just getting to that why. Sit down and ask why. I mean, if that's something that you need to journal on, I would do that. I also do journals from the perspective of the clients, the they're the end users, like what's going on in their world. Mm-hmm. So, being able to step out of your own world sometimes makes it a little easier to step back in and go, you know what? Okay, what I'm doing here really can help. If that makes any sense. We all say, I want to make an impact, but at the same time, I think we all have a fear that we're insignificant. Mm-hmm. So, but that impact, it doesn't have to come, in big explosions and, saving the world and all that. What you're doing is enabling your buyers to change their lives. And then when you focus on that rather than the sale, and that can be hard, especially when you're starting out, okay, I know it's nice and I got to take my time and find my, purpose and but, the mortgage company doesn't want to be paid in goodwill and nice thoughts. Right. Mm-hmm. So there is some of that deal of I've taken projects that I didn't exactly want to, I've taken side jobs at different points in my career just to be able to continue building the message that I wanted to build. And it's not an easy task, as far as finding your voice, for me, it's about finding the worst times in your life and meditating on exactly what that felt like, because it's hard for us to remember that those emotions are being played out more than 7 billion times around the world right now.
Wow, that's really different, because I was expecting you to say find the times that you were, the most happiest or more impactful, rather than the most negative.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand what you're saying, but no,
I like it, because
starting with it's, you want to take them to a better place, but unfortunately, some people do. A lot of times people don't even realize until it's pointed out to them what the problem. And that's one of the the darker parts of marketing. I'm not going to say it's all squeaky clean, but if you can do that, that's to be what cultivates empathy.
Yeah, I was just I had a thought when you was talking, and I was just wondering whether as a society we're moving away from those painful messages. Like when you first start doing marketing, and it's all like, look for the pain, make them feel bad, and basically make them cry, and then they'll come to you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a very unsophisticated way, and the way that people are much more suspicious now. Do you think, especially like with millennials and Gen Z and stuff, are moving away from that make me hurt and to get me to a place that I really want to be? Or do you think it still works?
Yeah. No, well, it works if you're certain people who already have name recognition, and we won't go into that. But yeah, I hear, especially from millennials, like, I can't believe people think that we still fall for this stuff, because we've grown up with it. It's incredibly transparent to us, and it's very off-putting. And so I do want to be clear that the reason that I say, being able to viscerally feel the worst emotions of your life is not about being able to drill somebody else down and make them feel like crud. It's about being able to understand and empathize with what's going on in their world.
Okay. So when you think about persuasive marketing, so you can be persuasive through manipulating, which is like an extreme maverick way, or you can be persuasive through influence, which is more of a socialized maverick way. Mm-hmm. How do you keep the marketing ethical and more socialized than extreme?
I start a lot earlier in the process. I find that what most marketers call content marketing is just throwing stuff at the wall. Uh-huh. It becomes this. It comes from a place of, I have to stay in front of my target people. Therefore, I have to generate content all day long so that every time they're scrolling through their feed, they see my name. Mm. I got caught up in that for a long time. And one, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Two, it made me want to slap other people who doing that, because it's like, if you post that Henry Ford quote one more time on Instagram. I know if I think I can or I think I just stop it. All right. It's like everybody, I can't believe that somebody's scrolling through Instagram going, God, I'm really glad I saw that for the 12th time today. It's what? So I've dialed back social media, focused on making it, I hate to use the word funnel-esque, but let's just say that every piece of content that I put out has a specific purpose.
Yeah. And is that purpose to build a long-time story, or would it be more to funnel, not in like a hard, this is a funnel, but like a soft funnel into a certain outcome? Is it both?
It absolutely, no, it is a much softer thing. I actually start out my funnel, well, if you will, we'll call it a funnel, what the heck, with 1 minute videos that I run on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that that's amazing because it's like you could actually get people to watch a 1 minute video sometimes. Yeah. And so I don't worry about building a big audience, but I watch and I say, okay, how many people watch this entire video, or 95% of it, because the last 3 seconds are just me blathering. So I look at that and go, okay, well, these people connected with my message. Now let's try a bunch of different next steps and see which one moves them. So it becomes almost like putting a puzzle together, which is time consuming and frustrating at times. But to me, it's been a heck of a lot more effective than just follow somebody else's 3-step funnel and, here you go. Don't you want a copy of my ebook? No, I don't want a copy of your ebook. But there's only 17 left. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that, because it makes you think of those old adverts. Like those really, when you see the kind of that weird sepia type adverts from the 60s, and you're just like, seriously, did people really think that? It's just like, that's madness. That's just crazy.
I actually collect those.
I'm not surprised, because they're funny.
Yeah, they are. Actually, my favorites, and I got started on this when we visited the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit a while back. Old ads for like when cars really became first available in a mass consumer way, and then there were things like the pop-up campers and all the crazy stuff, and the ads that went with these things were just absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, like, you'll be really sexy, or your woman would really love you if you buy her Flash, or something like that. It's like, yes. Seriously, yes. Get excited over your washing powder or pot pans or whatever. It's just you kind of like, you look back now and you wonder, was it really like that? And like everything was new and everything was so exciting, or was it just unsophisticated marketing? Because the time difference is so vast now. You just don't know, because you weren't alive then. It's like, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I always tell people that when they reference like, oh, you gotta write like the direct marketing greats. I'm like, okay, in 1982, and I was around in 1982, so I know a little bit about this. You had 3 channels sometimes. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot to do. I grew up in the country, and there were cows. I mean, that was just it. And if you got an 8-page sales letter in the email in the mail, there's a good chance you'd actually sit down and read the darn thing, whether you cared about the product or not, because there wasn't that much else to do.
Yeah. Now
it's you get 3 seconds of someone's time before they're on to the next thing, just because there's so much there.
Yeah, and I think maybe the difference as well is that as kids, as Generation Xers particularly, are having children, they're teaching the children to counter the messaging. So as the kids getting older and becoming buyers of themselves, they're already like, it's like, YouTube doesn't have to believe it because so and so told me that. No, so it's much harder to hit the later demographics, because they're being taught earlier to mistrust almost everything that you see everywhere. Don't trust it because it's a scam. Just to help them, I guess.
And whether it is or not, that's an ongoing discussion in copywriters groups about countdown timers.
Yeah.
There are people who's like, okay, well, this is legitimate. I'm taking the offer down when this offer. Well, great, that's fine. But the problem is there have been enough people who have lied about that. The countdown timer ends, and then you come back 5 minutes later, and suddenly you put another freaking countdown timer. So, like, after you see that, then all countdown timers are BS. See, that's the thing. All these tricks get worn out, and then people become immune to them.
Yeah, I mean, when I work with my small business clients and we look at that kind of stuff, publishing and growing the business, one of the things I say is that nowadays you have your money and there are 1,000,001 people doing something vaguely similar to yours. And if it's not, it's no longer, I always talk about, way back when it was all about niche, if you can create a niche, everyone will buy from you. But then you got to the point where so many people are in the market, your niche was a niche of one, which obviously which couldn't feed you. So then you had to go niche and tribe. And that's the only way to survive, is having that ability to have people that want only you, regardless of what it is, what the cost is. And you have to be brave and be maverick and stand out by being you. And as you said before, deciding that you are enough, but bringing your whole skills and your values and your voice, and deciding this is me, and you'll either like it or you won't. But I can't, assuming that you're a nice me, not a mass murderer or something like that. Because then you have a real choice, isn't it? I remember having a potential client who came up to do something, and I said, this is what I'm doing, it's the cost, and then he said, I've actually just, funny enough, had a conversation with somebody saying very similar. I said, okay, that's fine. I said, go away and think about what it is that you want to do. And then he came back probably, 2-3 hours later, and he said, actually, you have integrity, I trust what you're saying, I feel like I know you from all the stuff that's out there, and that you actually really care. Whereas his other person felt like they wanted my money, because when I was talking to you, it felt like you actually cared about the solution, whether I came back or not. And I was like, well, yeah, I honestly do. And he goes, right. Yeah, but that's the difference, that's why I want you. And I was like, oh, okay. It's surprising how much people just want the money, so therefore they become like everybody else, really.
Well, I think that people hit a point where they can't care at scale.
Yes.
And then everybody's telling them, oh, you got to grow, you got to scale, you got to hit 6 figures, you got to hit 7 figures. I'll agree with the 6. I mean, 6 figures ain't what it used to be. But then, it is when it's 7 and it's 8, and, I don't personally want that. To me, that's a lot of pressure. I like making enough to keep the bills paid, have some nice things, and take care of my wife's salon expenses, of which there are many. But because that keeps her happy, and when she's happy, I get to sleep inside. But beyond that, I've really had to extract myself out of that. Oh, I got to get to 7 figures. Oh, I got to get to 8 figures, because I found it was killing me for something I didn't even really want.
Yeah, I can totally get that. So I think we're almost at the point to ending. What would your one takeaway for the audience be if they were considering copy branding rather than branding or copywriting?
Well, it's right now a niche of one. No, really, it's that's a term that I've come up with, and you're not going to go find people hiring copy branders. But what I'm really focusing on is just finding people who have that mindset, because if you can have empathy and you have decent writing skills, you can be a good copywriter. No, I've got to disagree. There's one of the big outfits is doing this promo that says anybody can be a great copywriter, and they're selling you a course for like $97 or whatever. There are clearly people who should never try to do that. But I think if you have if you're good at writing, you already know it. And really just developing that curiosity, that empathy, and that willingness to unlearn constantly are the keys to succeeding in this industry going forward.
Yeah, I think the Maverick ideal of forever being curious
Yes.
is probably one that will help a lot of small business and freelancers in the future.
Things change too fast not to be curious.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, Thanks, Lee. That was really fun.
Absolutely. Thank
Would you
you.
come? Would you come back again? Do you think?
I absolutely would anytime.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you once again for tuning into the Maverick Paradox podcast. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my conversation with Lee as much as I enjoyed having it. If you'd like to learn more about Mavericks and leadership, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. Alternatively, apply to join the Maverick Paradox exclusive Facebook group. And my website is maverickparadox.com. Find out how willful independence can ultimately change all our futures. Thanks again, and see you soon.